I've seen a lot of disturbing polls over the years, but this one is right up there with the worst of them. And it also is a prime example of what we were just talking about, which is catering to an online crowd that is not living in the real world. There was a poll that was done here, and it's a shocking poll. I'm reading this from thehill.com. Emerson College did the poll, and Emerson College does a lot of political polling. They do presidential polling and things like that. The survey found that 68% of all respondents found the actions of the person who shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson unacceptable. Now, okay, seems about right. I mean, you'd like it to be 99%, but I get it. Bizarre country right now. But here's the stunning part of this poll. 41% of adults under 30 consider the killing of Brian Thompson acceptable. More than the 40% in that demographic who consider it unacceptable. So for those 18 to 29, more people found it acceptable to murder a CEO in broad daylight, on the streets, shooting him in the back, then found it unacceptable. Now, as you go up the ladder in age range, that number drops very quickly. All right, that's what the data shows here. But what it also shows is that 22% of Democrats say they found the killing acceptable, compared to 16% of independents and 12% of Republicans. Now, that's an embarrassing number no matter what. It's almost twice as high for Democrats as Republicans to shoot CEOs in the back that you don't like and kill them as they have, a wife and 2 kids at home. But it's even disturbingly high for Republicans. Like, how are there 12% of Republicans who think this is okay? How is there 22% of Democrats who think this is okay? 16% of independents who think this is okay? It's a wildly disturbing trend in the country. And how did we get here? Well, when you view everything through an online prism and people you don't like are not fellow human beings, this is how you get polls that result like this. When you don't have, I think in large part, when you don't have human-to-human contact as much as you should. And the younger you are and the more you live online, the more likely you are to maybe work from home. Like, you're literally not around people. You get DoorDash delivered to your house. There's no human contact. You get a text message saying your food's at the front door. You literally can live a life now where everything is on your phone. You're not even picking up the phone and talking to somebody. You order things on your phone without even hearing a human voice. You don't view people as fellow human beings. You view them as individuals who represent something either that you like or you hate. And that's how you end up with a poll where 18 to 29-year-olds are more likely to feel like the killing of a CEO that you may not like is acceptable. That is utterly insane. Thankfully, it is only a younger subset that likely leans much further to the left and clearly leans much further to the left. But it also is who politicians have in some corners been catering to. You've heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman out of New York, make excuses. You've heard Elizabeth Warren say last week on MSNBC, you can only push people so far with this health insurance stuff before somebody snaps, as if there's a justification for what Luigi Mangione allegedly did to Brian Thompson and is accused to have done to Brian Thompson. We have to all get together and say, no, we are not going to be murdering people on the streets because we don't like their industry. As if Brian Thompson also was somehow in charge and the guy who single-handedly was making decisions on denying potential insurance claims, which is also an insane accusation to make. Yeah, the CEO is like, yep, accept, deny, accept, deny, accept. No. But that is the world that we find ourselves in today. And you want to talk about being out of touch? Well, guess what? If you go on social media, You will see, and you will probably think, just based on social media feeds, that maybe half the country is down with this. Half the country is accepting of this. Thankfully, it's much smaller. Thankfully, all in all, it's a much smaller group of people that overall believe this is acceptable. But if you live in that world where it leans left and it leans younger, you'll think like 40% of people are cool with this. And that's simply not the case.
I'd like to be the asterisk to this conversation and suggest never underestimate the ability of trolls just to simply wind people up in this country to get the divisiveness going.
Yes, I agree. That's a good point there, John.
Well, at the moment, we all reflect inward like it's an American thing, but there's a certain amount of this that is just instigating.
Yes, it is. And it makes me think, too, back to the summer, right, when Trump was almost killed.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the reaction from some people? Hell, missed him by a quarter inch. Oh, boy, what a shame. There was some of that. Now, not nearly like there is with this CEO, Brian Thompson,
right? But
there was an element of that was really disturbing. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist on the right as well to some degree.
No.
I totally get it. It does happen on both sides of the aisle. But you look at this poll, and it makes it very clear that, sad to say, younger people were more likely to accept the killing of the CEO, and those who lean left were more likely to accept the killing of the CEO. And it reminds me of last week when I was flipping through the radio dial here in Kansas City in the afternoon, and there was a show that was talking about this very issue. And they were horrified by their audience showing support for the killer. Now, this show does not lean the way this show does. The show leans the other way, even though they always say, we don't talk politics here. Oh, come on, please. You don't talk politics you don't like to talk about. Everything is political in 2024 to some degree. But they were just horrified by their audience on the text line, showing support for the killer. It's like, guys, do you know your audience? You shouldn't be shocked by it. You really shouldn't be, based on where this conversation around the healthcare industry has trended. Why is it that in the wake of this murder, they don't want to talk about gun control? I found that pretty interesting, too, the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so.
Interesting.
Usually it's all about the guns. There has been no chatter about gun control in the wake of this killing. It's all about the healthcare industry instead, because that fits the narrative, John.
It is disturbing that each statistic is in double digits.
Mm-hmm.
I think even in high single digits, which is alarming.
Yeah.
Right. But to the point that the young people, I don't look at it as a harbinger that young people are going to carry this forward. We know, I can remember myself, things don't apply to you when you're young, and so you can have a black and white absolute until you get to that point.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yep.
And so part of the young thing is they just got to have a little knocked into them, you know?
Yeah, oh, yeah. A little
and
sense,
that's coming.
Yes,
so
it is.
That's not quite as alarming to me as the double digits in every group.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, even Republicans being over 10% is just disturbing and disgraceful. It's not about political party.
Right.
This number should be at 0%, obviously, ideally. I understand you're going to have a few wackos, but I couldn't believe how high it was when it came to people who were accepting of literally killing a guy because you don't like his company or don't like his industry. I mean, that is just freaking nuts. But it also tells you a lot about the world that we live in. 913-408-7957. It's 743 on KCMO Talk Radio. We are going to have an in-studio visit at 8 o'clock with KCK Police Chief Carl Oakman. We will talk about the Roger Golubski case. We know what happened there a couple of weeks ago when this former KCK detective was set to stand trial. And, well, the day of his trial, he took his own life. The day his trial was set to begin, he took his own life. But obviously, this is still a big topic of conversation around the region. The police chief in KCK, Carl Oakman, is going to be here at 8:05 on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Talking with you about this stunning poll from yesterday. Came out from Emerson College. They do presidential polling, and it found that 41% of adults under 30 considered the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson acceptable. How did we get here, and how the heck do we get out of that place? There's nothing about it that should be lauded, encouraged, promoted, and there already have been copycats as well. targeting other healthcare CEOs. Now, these individuals have been arrested because they've been stupid enough to try to talk about it on social media. But I'm telling you, that was as disturbing a poll as I've seen in a long time. Jeff's in Olathe. Hey, Jeff, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, Pete, I appreciate the point that you are making. I wonder if acceptable is they've accepted the outcome or they accept what it is doing, because it's calling attention to the healthcare industry as a whole. So why is one man's life above the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who die, slowly waste away due to denied claims each year? I think that's what people are feeling, more so than cheering on this murder.
Well, that presumes the healthcare industry at large is basically willingly killing fellow Americans, and that is certainly listen, no one's a fan of the health insurance industry by and large. No one likes really any insurance industry by and large. Find me somebody who likes car insurance, health insurance, life insurance companies. By and large, people don't like them. But the insinuation that the companies are just willing to let fellow Americans die just because is also an unfair criticism for the industry as a whole, is it not?
The free market is supposed to encourage competition. These companies have conglomerated and joined together down to a point where there is virtually no competition. So there's no incentive for somebody to actually offer good coverage anymore.
Well, so I mean, you're right. The industry did come together and did shrink in large part when it comes to number of companies. And that was in large part driven by what? That was driven by Obamacare. That was driven by the government playing a larger role in the industry, which basically made it so the little guys could no longer compete.
I mean, fair, yes, that was a byproduct. And now your point about gun control, I just wanted to say this, that, you know, as Second Amendment advocates, we talk about the ability to defend ourselves from, you know, tyranny. And it's not just tyranny from the government, but it's tyranny from the haves and the have-nots. So I think maybe this is more symbolic, the murder of this CEO being seen as, you know, hey, this is a win for the little guy. It's calling attention to it. It's getting it out into the, you know, greater consciousness of Americans thinking about, hey, I'm not satisfied with what we're being given, the scraps that we're being given.
You know, there is a Robin Hood element that Jeff is referring to there, and I appreciate the call, Jeff. There's a Robin Hood element where people are kind of making out this Luigi Mangione guy to be like the Robin Hood of our time, right? This guy who's out there fighting for the little guy. First off, look at who his family is. His family is one of the most well-to-do families in the Baltimore area. They own country clubs and businesses and the whole thing. I mean, they are a very prominent family in the Baltimore area. So this guy's no Robin Hood. Number two, even if he was trying to play Robin Hood, well, guess what? That's not how a civilized society works. It's just not how it works. And this notion of, well, the healthcare industry has gotten all jacked up and these insurance companies are rejecting claims left and right. Well, that is true, but look at how we got here. The more the government plays a role in this industry, and really any industry, the more expensive and the worse the product gets. What you saw happen in the wake of Obamacare is smaller companies get priced out of the business model. Same thing happened when Dodd-Frank got passed. When Dodd-Frank came to be, which was supposed to be, you know, legislation that was going to protect the little guy from the big bad banks when that passed in 2010 in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. All it really did was give more power to the big banks who could afford the legal experts, the lawyers, all the backroom people that they suddenly needed to do all this work on behalf of the federal government. It allowed them to succeed. It allowed them to thrive while the little guy got hosed. Same thing happened with Obamacare. Because what Obamacare required these companies to do is basically increase the cost on the consumer to provide health insurance and get coverage to people who otherwise may not be able to get it. It basically created this government mentality of, well, we've all got to help each other a little bit more. What does that lead to? Consolidation. What does that lead to? Increased costs. Borderline monopolies. Government involvement never helps any of this stuff. And anyone who is saying that, well, you know, these guys, they get what's coming because they're just, big, bad industry that's screwing the little guy. And then some people think the answer to this is a bigger government role in the healthcare industry. And that is certainly not the case. Jonathan, go ahead.
Hey, Pete. Ben talks a lot about this. Part of it is, the nonsense going on in the healthcare industry, which, there are problems in it, and it does need to be fundamentally reformed. It's not sustainable as it is, not long-term for society. However, the fact that, people are making, they made excuses with this. Well, the healthcare is broken, so we can do this. We can kill this guy. And, race relations were broken for the last few centuries, so we can do billions of dollars of property damage. That's a reflection of we don't have common set of values anymore. A lot of people don't go to church anymore. They don't inculcate morals and religion and, parents to kids anymore. And we don't agree on even principles like, well, democracy and constitution. When it's favorable to your side, yeah, you'll scream about that all day long. But the second that it isn't, let's kick Biden out. It doesn't matter. He was the Democratic nominee. The Constitution, well, when it's good for us, we'll support it. But when it's bad for us, well, it's just some old slave document. We don't have common values anymore. So
That's well said. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it, buddy. Let's go to Paula in Independence. Go ahead, Paula.
Hi, Pete. I don't know how to fix the situation, but I do work in the medical field as a medical assistant, and I was thinking when the caller from Olathe was saying how insurance is deliberately letting people die. I don't think that's necessarily what they're doing. However, I have a patient who has a lesion on her liver that's supposed to have repeated MRIs to monitor if it's growing or not. And I have been working over her pre-authorization approved so she can get this MRI. And it's pretty frustrating when the doctor orders procedures to be done and the insurance 50% of the time saying that they don't feel that it's medically necessary.
And there is a lot of that, thank you, Paula, that does go on. You're right. It's not a defense of those specific situations. But the answer is never to murder the CEO of the company. Oh, my gosh.